And then I left that to build my focus of my drive, my vision, which was Lewis Paris Fitness. I injured my knee, ruptured ACL. I thought the world was over. I thought, you know what, I cannot play football no more. The drive's gone, the passion's gone. The Greek island of Kos, where I did 2 seasons, 2 summer seasons for 4 months DJing.
Yeah.
And that opened my eyes in terms of the opportunities in life. Every disappointment is a blessing in disguise. So as much as I didn't make that, I was blessed to go that route, and it expanded my mind and my horizon when it comes to everything to do with sports, in sports. And I think it should be as accessible as possible, because why shouldn't someone have that as a necessity? It should be more a necessity than it is a luxury. So when you go through that mobility analysis or movement analysis, you'll be like, oh, I'm being educated here. He knows what he's doing. I'm going to invest in Lewis Paris Fitness.
Lewis, welcome to the Second Wind Academy podcast. Great to have you on here joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. Now, one of the bits we were just talking about is how typically I have professional elite level athletes or performers who are with me on this podcast to try and give that different perspective. And the reason I'm really looking forward to our conversation is because you're going to bring a slightly different angle. As a professional, full-time PT, you are actually doing one of the roles that many athletes aspire to do when they look at their life after sport. So I'm really excited to have you join me today and talk a bit about how you've got to where you are today and, kind of what's next. But I really want the warts and all story. So let's not sugarcoat today.
All right, let's dive in. Let's have a good time.
Good man. Now, Lewis, for those who don't know you yet, as they will do as we go through this conversation, please introduce yourself and let us know what you're up to nowadays.
So I'm Lewis Paris, director and founder of Lewis Paris Fitness. I've been in the industry for about 8 years now, the fitness industry. If I give you the full wind of the story, starting off as front of house receptionist on internship. So I was only paid expenses, right? So travel and lunch. And my mindset then was I just wanted to get into the industry after studying sports at college. And for me, it was diving in and being like, I want to become the best personal trainer that I could be. This seems to be right for me. I enjoy sports, but how can I get involved with fitness, right? So I started in this private small group personal training studio and just worked my way up, front of house receptionist, front of house manager, got my level 2 in fitness instructing, completed level 3 in personal training, started coaching one-on-one clients and doing classes. And before you know it, I'm head of operations of this studio, running it for the last 2.5 years, mentoring instructors and managing the gym and managing people, understanding the brand and how to build a business as such and build a team. And then I left to go to the public sector, David Lloyd, gym manager.
Yeah.
And then I left there after a few months because I found out I was the black sheep of the company, and went to a 5-star gym and spa residential gym in central London as a general manager.
Right.
And then I left that to build my focus of my drive, my vision, which was Lewis Paris Fitness. And I joined a big entity in the fitness industry, name being Fitness First. But I went in there with the mindset of I'm Lewis Paris Fitness in Fitness First rather than a Fitness First PT, and grew my clientele in under 11 months and left there to go to a private studio and continue my journey as Lewis Paris Fitness and formed the company in 2019. So I come to you today and now saying Lewis Paris Fitness, director, founder, head trainer, and all the above. And it's all about evolving and creating that ecosystem to help that individual or group of individuals unlock what's in their mind and that unlimited potential that they have that they seem to lack, right? So that's the focus.
That's an awesome intro and sort of backstory to get us to where you are today, Lewis. So thanks for that. And what's fascinating to me already is from college, so you deciding to study at college, and then stepping into this world, this the world of personal training or gym and health exercise. It seems like you had a determination to to become that best PT. And now you are where you are. What was the initial inspiration towards wanting to be the best PT?
It's stemmed back a little bit prior to sports. So my dad was a DJ, and he taught me from a young age. He inspired me in regards to just sitting back, understanding what's happening. So this music's playing, and if you see this, could it work well with that? And then perfecting your craft and seeing him in his element. So for me, music was big for me, and he pushed me into sports, right? And I think it was just an amalgamation of the one and the same, where if I can do that and I know how to do it that way, but then I see someone else doing it that way, I see how they might be doing it, but then the way people are reacting to this individual, without stepping on anyone's toes or sounding condescending, but it's like, he ain't doing it right, but people are applauding it, they're enjoying it. So it's like, if he can do it, why can't I do it? And I know I can do it better. So for me, I guess it was, I just have a natural drive in me, right? In regards to wanting to become the best version of myself. And going back even more and just laying deeper into the story, I grew up, he threw me into football, playing at local teams and going in different positions to find what's right for you. And then you hone in your craft, your skill, and you're like, oh, I feel right in this position. So from left back, right back, centre back, and then centre mid was my game. That was me, defensive. And then before you know it, I developed and became that sort of attacking defensive player, the one that holds the glue, for the team. And for me, it was like, we've got to win. I want to win. It's that leadership, right? So for me, it's like, I see what they're doing, but I know as individuals and as a team, we can come together and beat these guys, But not everyone had the same mindset. Sometimes it was individual or this isn't working, let's give up. But for me, it's like every opportunity, there's a chance.
Yeah.
So for me, getting into sports or doing sports at college and then being like, you know what, I've seen what the world is like as a DJ, but I'm just not patient enough to see that grow and develop. But I have a big passion for sports and health and fitness. That's interesting to me. If that guy can do that, I know I can do better. So for me, I just wanted to become the best version of myself in that field.
Yeah. And
it literally just opened up different kind of doors. And I think me as an individual, as a nice person, and people seeing that, it inspires people. It attracts the right individuals towards me to want to help network and build, so that was the sort of North Star, so to speak.
Do you know what's really fascinating? Because my dad was a DJ as well. So growing up, and as soon as you say it, and the way you describe that he was pulling pieces of music together, different beats, different sounds, sort of getting this mix, so it's not just a one track, let it finish, but it was bringing in your own little flavor to that, mixing pieces together. And it's interesting how that then inspired you, or sort of just got you thinking, well, it doesn't need to be just one thing, but you can bring in this flavor, be it different positions, different influences, to try and drive, I guess, in some respects, please the crowd, but drive a reaction from those who are listening and sort of, well, I guess they're in the room and they're dancing, and you're able to sort of drive their emotion and drive the pace that they're moving, right?
Correct. Yeah, exactly that. You're providing the energy.
Yeah.
You are the party starter. You entertain the crowd, right?
Yeah.
So it's I'm sure you can relate when you was playing sports, right? It's like you're trying to understand the gameplay. You know your game. And then it's you're fighting against this opponent. How can we get past them, right? So it's understanding the sort of patterns you would see and be like, okay, I see what they're doing here. How can we break that pattern? It's the same thing when I work with clients. I tell people it's not a one size fits all. Okay, my background is more so calisthenics, going into the cliche of saying functional fitness, moving well. And then you have the generic fat loss and strength building, bodybuilding type S sort of training. But it's like, okay, that's great. But we could cherry pick from these different bits within the industry and hone it into you because you're individual. It's tailor made and bespoke for you, because I know that will work for you, but not the whole part of that program, you know? So it's the same thing, cherry picking and directing to help that individual.
Yeah. And so for you, so now I'm interested. So you mentioned there sport, or, you know, as you're growing up, getting pushed into sport, or, you know, encouraged to participate in sport. Were you then, as a kid, were you like, was it just a one sport for you growing up, or did you have a mix of sports there that you were actually good at as a young guy? Hi, it's Ryan Gonsalves here. Thanks for tuning in today. I just want to take a moment to ask you an important favor. To help grow this channel, one thing will do that above more than anything else. Please hit that subscribe button. By hitting that subscribe button, you help me to grow the channel, allowing me to create more tailored content, improving the quality, and also to develop additional services such as the workshops, one-on-one sessions specifically designed to support elite athletes in that difficult transition to that career beyond sport. So if you want to join me on this journey to help inspire, guide, and connect individuals to find their second wind, please hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, so growing up, there was a lot of kung fu in the house, you know, karate, Chinese kung fu, all of that. You know, the dub version of you see a man's lips moving, but you don't hear the
Yeah,
voiceover coming to us 10 seconds later, right?
yeah, yeah,
So my dad encouraged me to get into self-defense classes and karate and stuff like that. And he was like, you do this and it'll pick up your reflexes. And for me, as a kid, I was just like, what are you on about, Dad? Do you know? But I could see what he was getting into because he really loved football. He wanted me to get involved with it. And I could see the similarities, you know? So if I'm sharp and I'm focusing on eye-hand coordination, that's only going to up my game when I get into the football matches and so on and so forth, right? So I did that for a few years in terms of karate and stuff like that. But football was the main one for me. That was my pride and joy. I enjoyed it. That's what gave me happiness. And all the other sports in school and whatnot, like tennis, cross country, gymnastics. Just gymnastics tickled me a little bit. I love gymnastics, to be fair. I think that's why I enjoy calisthenics. But yeah, football was the main one. And then when I touch anything when it comes to sports, I can pick it up very quickly. I just have that kind of intuition. But it came from a young age for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so from a sport perspective, I have to ask anyway, but what aspirations did you have? Did you want to become a professional footballer? Was that something you dreamt of?
Yeah, literally, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to become a footballer. You know, if it wasn't football, I didn't know where else I would go, what I would do. You know, that's all it was. It was go to school, learn your books, and let's just play sport. You know, let's just kick that ball around. I just had a love for it. That's all I had in my mind.
So where did you get to? What happened there?
Um, I guess I got to a point where I was doing, when you get just before you get into college, and you're sort of putting your best foot forward in terms of, I don't know what you call it now. I can't remember what you call it then, but like a CV, and you're like, these are my predicted grades and this and that, and then you go into different football clubs and you're trying to trial out against all these other kids, you know, all these open days, or if you get invited to do it. So I went to a few of these sessions, and lo and behold, I did have the opportunity to play with Boreham Wood semi-professionally.
Yeah.
Now, my only caveat, and I don't like to live life with regrets, but then you think back and you're like in hindsight, but my only caveat to that was I would have to get up at like 4:30 in the morning each day and travel almost 2 hours to get there.
Yeah.
And at the age of 15, 16, I'm like, I ain't doing that. That's too much for me, man. Do you know what I mean? So I stepped away from that on that sort of opportunity. Don't know where they could have went, but I'm grateful they saw something in me. And then I went to Watford, and they were doing not sports. It wasn't like a BTEC sports, which I ended up doing, but it was like football and you're doing something in the lines of
Yeah.
sports and fitness, so to speak. So
Hmm.
you're not playing for Watford, but you're just kind of working towards that, like an academy kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah.
And all they needed was my predicted grades, and I don't know what took over me. I don't know what the Lord was trying to tell me, but instead of putting what I knew I should be getting, I was doing below that. So instead of putting C's and stuff, I was doing D's, and what it
Yeah.
was, something was going on in my mind. Something took over. So
Mm.
when I got there, they were like, "Yeah, we thought you was gonna get these grades and not better. So we didn't think you was gonna get on the team. So we're not gonna take you on." And I went, my heart just sank. I was like,
Yeah.
"What?" But I think that was um, that was a blessing, because
Hmm.
if I track back to what them boys were doing, was because we was almost working alongside them. I went to the same college that they were using, and I studied sports in college for a couple of years. But we would do sports, football, so to speak, on the same sort of pitch and have matches against them. Yeah, they were great, but all they were doing was kicking balls. So it felt like they were living the dream. But tracking
Yeah.
back on it, it was like they're only going so far and they're only pushing them so far, and they're not sort of directing them as if they're not going to make it, what they're going to do, sort of thing. So um, something my nan always used to tell me was every disappointment is a blessing in disguise. So as much as I didn't make that,
Hmm.
I was blessed to go that route, and it expanded my mind and my horizon when it comes to everything to do with sports, in
Yeah.
sports and surrounding it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you were kind of getting almost the best of both worlds in some respects. You were getting that view as to, well, what might it be like to be a young um, um, cadet or professional or a young academy football player, whilst also getting the studies and still being in
Mm.
and around the environment. And that's something I'm certainly learning through more and more of these conversations, is the importance of that environment to help you thrive and get to your best self. And what you're describing is, well, actually, you were learning in an environment that you sort of wanted to be in and around that world of
Mm.
professional sport. And so that's a good thing. So that probably helped you to study and continue to open your eyes to, well, the world of work, the world of sport, or world of work in a sporting context, at least.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure.
Well, what I think is also interesting is just one of the points you mentioned about regret. And it's one of those, it's all about that frame of mind that you take with regret. If you take it as, yeah, no regrets, no regrets, it's like, well, actually, there can be a regret, but it's one that you learn from. And it's one that you understand, well, oh, yeah, I wish I would have done that because that would have changed things. But you know what? It's okay, because here's the opportunities that I was able to take from, coming out of that particular situation. So I think you're right. You can live without regrets, but you can still look back and reflect.
Oh, 100%. Because it's like, for you to sort of move forward, sometimes it's good to track back in terms of where you got to. Okay, so I've learned this, I've learned that. What's going to shape me now? What do I want to move? What direction do I want to move into? What's next for me? And
Yeah.
I guess we was going to sort of lean towards it, but I continued to play football, and I played for. I was still invested with football. My parents allowed me to go to this football sort of retreat, so to speak,
Hmm.
and you come with all these different individuals. You get picked to do it, basically,
Yeah.
and you get to train and learn and be educated in the world of football. And then by the end of this week, you can have the opportunity to play in front of scouts and stuff like that. So it was a week long sort of academy sort of stint, like boot camp, and that there really honed my craft, so to speak. Even much so when I got back to playing with my regular team. Sadly, I didn't get scouted, but going back to my regular team, um, the coach was like, "Yeah, we want to make you the captain and this and that." And I was like,
Yeah.
"I'm at a different stage now. Even playing with these local lads, I'm moving different. I learned so much in that week, and sometimes it's about being invested in that environment
Mm.
so much so you're going to pick up so many different things because you're doing it day in, day out. Whereas we might just do training once or twice a week and then a match on the weekend. Whereas when you're in that, and that's what young kids seem to forget, that if you really want something, repetition is the key to mastery, you know, and you've got to be so invested, and you've got to tell yourself, if I really want this, I've got to do this, right?
Yeah.
So it developed me so much in regards to the physical aspect, the mental aspect, and just being so engrossed in it. I was like, this is it. But moving forward, I started playing for this adult team, and I was doing awesome. Went to this competition, and then lo and behold, I injured my knee, ruptured ACL. I thought the world was over. I thought, you know what, I could not play football no more. The drive's gone, the passion's gone. And I remember very vividly, I think I was at the age of like 20, 21. And I just remember the doctor saying, you're going to have surgery. You're not going to be able to play football for a while, X, Y, and Z. And I'm sitting at the edge of my bed, and I thought life was done. I said, what am I going to do? This is all I know. This is all I do,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm crying. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is it. What am I going to do now, you know? And I can only think of on my level, but to take it, if you was playing, say, professional, you're like, shit, this is going to hit you even more. But it still, to me, was my life.
Yeah.
So it took a while to sort of digest, and you're mulling through life, and you're like, okay, what do I want to do? And then fast forward, that's when I said I'm going to dive in, you know, in regards to the music scene. And that's when I took DJing more seriously, you know, and it took me to the Greek island of Kos, where I did 2 summer seasons for 4 months DJing.
Yeah.
And that opened my eyes in terms of the opportunities in life, you know, in regards to if you follow your passion, anything can happen. I'm getting paid to play music here. I didn't think that was a thing, you know, and the sun is shining, you know, I could do what I want, so to speak. It's not like I have to get up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning and go to somewhere I hate, and I got to think about bills all day. No, this can be something, you know. So that expanded my horizons, and
Yeah.
that's what led me to go back into the real world of I need to follow my passion, and that's when I got into personal training.
Yeah. So that, I mean, that's fascinating, isn't it? Because the football world or the football path, you feel, stops. But what you had is, well, you had another passion, you had another interest, like you say, something where you go in and you're energizing a room, be it as captain on the football field, and here now you're seeing yourself as, I'll say, captain in the dance floor. But what you're actually doing is you are, like you say, you're following that passion, you're just following a path. I mean, when football, I mean, what is it then that made you want to go into the DJing side? And I suppose what I'm trying to figure out is, um, was it an escape? Was it no more sport? Boom, let me just go. I'm doing something completely different, you know, or was it something else that got you into thinking about DJ? This is where I can go next.
I feel growing up, I did it, football was my thing, but I still didn't know what I wanted to do as a career. So I knew I was good at sports. I need to give it a go. I need to push, but I didn't push hard enough. If I did, who knows? But you never know. And what led me down the path to where I am now, it was obviously I had that injury, and I was fortunate enough to have my father, who was a DJ, and he taught me how to DJ. And I always feel everything happens for a reason. So one of my best mates, he had the similar story, not football wise, but musically, where his dad, his family were all into music. So we came together, and we used to DJ house parties and clubs and stuff like that as a duo. But I took it more seriously, so leaning back on that word, it was a form of escapism, because music took me to a place where I didn't have to think about the immediate or the stresses of life. It allowed me to just be in myself, my zone, and just amplify what was in my head, you know, and just be involved in what was going on, right? Because music can hit different senses, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I just thought to myself, I got to dive in. And I always lent on what was a big dream. I'm a big dreamer. I envision big, right? And just prior to taking DJing seriously, I said to myself, I want to become an airline pilot. What can I do to become a commercial airline pilot?
Yeah.
You know, I could be in the skies. I could be that guy, El Capitan, you know? So
Yeah.
I went to this expedition that they're doing for pilots, so to speak, or just being in the air industry, the airline industry. And I did this flight and aptitude test, which tests your eye hand coordination. And I was in the top three of the amount of people that did it. And I thought, oh, okay, I've got something here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do I do it? And then before I know it, I'm hearing medical costs this amount of money. You've got to pay for this. And I was like,
Yeah.
shit, excuse my friend. I was like, yo, I can't afford that. I need to save up. So I
Yeah.
said, I'm going to take a back seat, go into the industry, see how far I can get, try and save some money, and then come back, revert back to it.
Yeah.
So that's why I was so driven, because I had that in the back of my mind. I was like, I want to get there, but how can I get there? Right? I've got to save, I've got to do that. So I was trying to do warehouse jobs, I was doing DJing, I was doing all sorts, but I leant more towards the DJing side.
Yeah.
And it was after those 2 seasons, I just had that passion of, I see where it's going, but it's not getting me there fast enough. I need something a bit more immediate. And then I lent into personal training. So that's what led me to it. So it went from escapism, going to this island, seeing the sun, thinking it's some form of a reality because you're in your bubble. No matter where you are in a bubble, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got back to the UK and I thought, whoa, people are moving too fast here. Everyone's too serious, but I need to find my passion. And I thought, I don't want to feel like I'm working for the sake of working, So
Yeah.
that's when I lent into PT and made that more my reality.
Yeah. And why personal training?
Do you remember MySpace?
I do. Yes.
So it was kind of like the start of social media, just before Facebook, so to speak, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we'll all have these profiles on there, and I always laugh at it, right? My profile was called Dr. Domino. I had this background of this black and blue dominoes and this doctoress feel where you can ask me anything,
Mm-hmm.
anything you want to ask me, we can help solve that question or that dilemma, So Dr. Domino, at tender age of 13, 14, I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And I think it was just in me. I just like to help people.
Mm.
And if you had problems, I was a good listener. I'll be like, okay, I hear that, but how can we fix that? I love to know how things work. I love to know how things get fixed, how you reverse engineer, take it apart. If something's happening there, how does that work? I can do that. I'm hands-on, right? So I think when it came to personal training, I knew that what level I could get to in regards to the mental capacity or sports alone. I just had a natural click and itch and affinity to sports and health and fitness and stuff like that. I just like being fit and strong.
Mm.
But then the next person or the person standing next to me didn't have that same itch. So I'm like, I see where your bag is, but at the same time, like, without health, where are you going?
Yeah.
And I understood that when you have certain moments where you feel sick or you're injured and you're hopeless or helpless, so to speak, you think the world's over, right? So how can I stop myself getting to that point? Or how can I just be fit for life?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm fit, I can do everything I want to do with no issues or little issues.
Yeah.
And people complain that they got backache or they feel tired or they're not inspired to do this. And I'm like, life is short, man.
Yeah.
So how can I show someone or encourage someone to be like, yeah, I've got this, I want to do more. So I think when it came to personal training and then developing and honing in my craft and understanding where I fit in that industry, it was using the physical aspects to tap into the mindset, because everything comes from the mind. The body's resilient, but if the mind's weak, the body is just going to follow suit and become weak, right? So it started with that. So if we could get personal best in your deadlifts and your squat and you're losing weight and you're building self-belief and confidence, that's going to translate now outside of the gym. That's going to go into your personal and your career life, and then you're going to feel on a high. So for me, that's the core element behind my brand and how and why I think I wanted to get into the industry per se.
Mm. See, that's interesting then, because it's what makes it interesting is you're interest in getting into personal training wasn't just the physical aspect of it. It was the desire to help, but then it was this holistic health and fitness, mind and body. That's what I'm understanding from what you're saying.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you're stepping into this world then of personal training, because it's interesting, right? You knew how to control your body because you'd been through, sport was so important to you. And, you know, but I guess there are other aspects in terms of teaching how to do it and bringing, the philosophy that you've just described there to life. So did you have to do additional training or courses, or was that something that you already had before, whilst you were being a DJ as well?
Yeah, so studying sports at college really, really helped because it laid the foundation. It opened my eyes to psychology, even more so, nutrition, business within sport, health and safety, working with kids. It literally touched every aspect you could think of. So it laid the foundation.
Yeah.
And moving forward, I sort of got thrown into the deep end, but in a good way, because I went through the private sector, working alongside an individual that just started this company. It was literally a start. January 2016, doors opened. I just started with this guy,
Yeah.
So like I was saying in the beginning, internship as a front of house receptionist.
Yeah.
And he saw the passion, the drive, and who I was as an individual, and it just naturally became so. Learning from him and
What
then being around experienced personal trainers.
Lewis, how did you get that job?
Okay, so end of around, let's say around August, September 2015, I was like, I need to find my passion because this was the year after DJing, after the second season. And I was saying to myself, okay, I need to find something. And then before you know it, I left one warehouse job to go to another, which was a little bit more pay. But it was one of those ones where you're kind of following the trend. You're like, what's my career? What do I do? Do I just go here and try and follow the career path here? So I got into the car industry then, and I literally wanted to, I've done management roles before, but the woman that interviewed me was basically saying I'm overqualified, but you're great for this warehouse role. And I'm like, you're taking a biscuit here, But I said, you know what, I'll do it. It's good money. So I ended up doing that. And I was doing that alongside studying my level 2 because I was like, I need to get my level 2 and then I can start diving into the world of health and fitness.
Yeah.
And I had a friend that worked as a manager at this gym, and I was working alongside him on the days that I wasn't working in regards to just sort of being his shadow, right? And getting more involved in the gym environment. And come come December, I said to myself, I'm going to resign from this warehouse job. I bloody hate it. I hate getting up in the morning. I hate being here all day. Being in muck, dirt,
Yeah.
and grime. This ain't me. Come on, Lou. I've had enough. And I said, I'm going to quit this and I'm just going to dive into this world. And literally it was probably about 5 days before Christmas, they turned around and said, yeah, the gym's shut. We're not opening it up in the new year. I said, whoa, okay, I haven't got a job. What am I going to do? I need to figure out what I need to do. So I just started searching online.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I found this, but he put on this site, internship front of house receptionist for a startup personal training studio. Now, from his standpoint, it was, I need to cut back on costs and find someone who has enough passion to want to get into the industry, to learn, to come in. And that's where I got in,
Yeah.
And the rest is history, basically. Yeah. So I found it on that site and it just went from there.
Yeah. And you were saying, I mean that's good, right? You come back, you're doing the study, and then you're looking for, I guess, roles that would help get you into the environment, get you, like you say, under someone who was trying to go somewhere, but then also learning from others coming in and out of that gym. And so how intentional were your moves from there onwards? You know, leaving there, David Lloyd, moving again. Were those intentional steps to sort of move you closer to running your own brand, or hey, just following what's in front of you?
Like I say, man, I am a big believer of everything happens for a reason. If it ain't flowing, don't go against it. Just follow the path, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just follow. Be as fluid and as adaptable as you can. Just be a sponge. Just understand your environment, right? Not everything's for you, but it'll be laid out to you at the right moment. Okay. So me going into this job and the way he operated, dare I say, he was doing like a 0 hours sort of contract. So I got forced to become a sole trader. I wasn't employed by him. I was self-employed, like a 0 hours contract once I became front of house manager. So he said, yeah, just think of a name and you'll get paid under this, get your accountant. And I'm like, hey, what's going on here? This is a new world to me because I've always been employed, right? So that's when I was just like, okay, Lewis Paris Fitness, that works, you know, and it just stuck. And then before you know it, I built this, I got this logo and it was very prominent. It's still this logo now, but we've
Yeah.
adapted it as time's gone on. So there's a bit of a fresher look to it. But it started then, beginning of 2016. And I couldn't really use that entity, but I still used it on social media sites, right?
Right.
So it was Lewis Paris Fitness, and I was head of ops for this PT studio, and it got to a point where people thought this was my studio, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And because I got along with people so well, and I'm that individual where, again, I like to know how things work. And when I know I'm good at something, I need to be challenged. I hate to be complacent or stagnant or doing the same thing for too long. I've got to diverse or
Yeah.
or
You want to see?
progress, right?
Yeah.
And that's when obviously I went to head of operations. So that was happening. That was great. I was learning doing this. And I think it was just more so on his side in terms of ego. He wanted to change the name of the company, and he went through this stint where he just wanted to fire everyone, and I was the bridge to it all. So everyone was coming to me to go to him to come to me to go to them. It was just wild. And there was just a moment in time where I was doing exceptionally well. I was earning more money than I've ever earned before. And he said, we need you to dive in, become more managerial in this role. And I'm like, I'm already doing it. But he's like, we need you to get more involved. And I was like, okay, got rid of my clients. And then before you know it, it was nothing really changed. And I was like, it's getting toxic now. I need to leave.
Okay.
So I said, I've kind of done the private. I need to see what the public sector's about, so I can have an all-round approach in terms of really where I want to go. If I want to stay in this position or this area, or go the career route, you know. But diving in, unless you're in management, there's not much money in it, or unless you know how to work your business within personal training.
Yes.
And that's what led me to David Lloyd, and I just wanted that on my CV, you know. And then I moved on to general management, and then I said, you know what? This ain't for me. I need to get back into what runs my soul, my heart, and I need to do things my way because people ain't doing it the way I want to do it. So that's how it birthed.
Right. So that's how it was. That's how you were born. That's how it then came about to be running your own thing. So, I mean, that's a fabulous story. Just getting to this point, and you know what I take away already is that mix that you spoke about from your dad earlier as the DJ, and trying little things, bringing in a spice of this, a flavor of that. And what you've described through your journey is it's sort of weaved through each way. You see, you're picking up little bits. You're picking up bits of knowledge, be it from the owners, from the way clients are working with you, from being in a small place to a big place. And all of these things seem to be weaving in whilst you're gathering knowledge about, well, what is Lewis Paris Fitness, but also who is Lewis Paris himself, right? And it's a great winding journey, a fantastic story, in fact, to listen to so far. That's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I guess from me going back into central London and coming in, like I said earlier, as Lewis Paris Fitness in Fitness First.
Yes.
Building up my clientele driven. I knew what to do at that moment, and I just amplified it, amplified it to a bigger audience, and it just grew rapidly. And I was like, okay, the one goal for me is I want to have my own space. So how do I get there? And that's when the company was formed in 2019. And it just started with this PT, right? And then as you grow and develop, and like I said, I feel like I can. There's more ways to skin a cat, and I don't like to throw all my eggs into one basket. So personal training, yes, but at the same time, I also felt that everyone should be able to afford a personal trainer. I think it should be as accessible as possible, because why shouldn't someone have that as a necessity? It should be more a necessity than it is a luxury, So not everyone can afford the education, the knowledge, the expertise of this individual coach.
So yeah, I was going to say. So what is it that makes you think personal training or an individual's health and fitness should be affordable and accessible, rather than this elusive thing that only the top sectors of society should be able to afford?
Exposure and education, right? So yeah, you have these classes, and it's a totally mixed bag. You can get someone who's great at command in a room, but they don't know how to coach an individual or group of individuals, or X, Y, and Z. You can have a most charismatic individual, but they're not the greatest PT. Or you can have someone that's a very introvert, silent person, but they're a great coach, but they don't know how to command a room. It's very rare that you have someone who hits the nail on the head. And I feel I was one of those individuals, because my classes were packed. People wanted me, this and that. So for me, it opened my eyes in regards to small group PT. And you're getting a blend of a class environment, that community feel, but you're having the knowledge and experience behind this individual who's showing you the best way to get in shape and empower you, right? So growing up, I didn't see that. And I didn't think, I didn't really know of personal training until later on, after studying sports and stuff, so to speak. And getting into that environment with the private studio, that's when I realized, I was like, oh, how come I don't know about this world? And people want to take their health seriously at a later stage, when if you educate someone and expose them from a younger age, they're going to be more inclined to look after themselves. And then they're not going to pick up these diseases or illnesses and stuff like that, because they're more health conscious. And when someone becomes more health conscious, they're going to have more energy to want to do the thing that you would love for them to do. They're going to be more proactive in work. They're going to be go-getter. They're going to be a happier person. I think it's better for the world that people include physical health, because it taps into the mindset. People are depressed because of the environment they're in. It's not sunny in the UK, but when it is, everyone's smiling. But when I go abroad, everyone's already smiling. Everyone's saying hello. So if I was to look at this, but I looked at someone yesterday and he looked at me like I killed his cat. I said, mate, I was going to say hello to you, but with that look, I ain't going to do it. So it's misery loves company, and I don't, so if I can get someone to feel physically good about themselves, that's going to now be infectious to the next individual. So if it becomes affordable, not just in the class setting, if someone's like, okay, I'm focusing on preventing lower back pain, I don't feel these aches and pains, and my mind is right because you're empowering me, then I'm going to tell the next person, or I'm going to encourage that person, So that's what was in my mind. And the best way to do that was to do small group classes, or to go into the corporate wellness side, working with employees where the company will pay for it. And that individual will come because the company's paying for it, and they feel like they're getting what they can get through that expert.
Yeah. So what are you doing then now, actively today, to make your brand more accessible to people?
Yeah, so again, life is a roller coaster. So started with the personal training, then I started to do small group PT at the private studio. So I was starting to introduce that, because people wanted to work with me, and I knew to make a living, to be competitive, and I knew I was better than the majority. I couldn't charge the same PT rate that everyone else was charging. There's a reason why this is at this price, but not still out of your reach. It's an investment, but it's an investment for your longevity, right?
Yeah.
So that's when I said, okay, we're going to have this as the pinnacle. The PT is you're getting one-to-one time with Lewis. Now you can get that in a group setting through small group PT. COVID hit. So we had to stop that and revert back to one to one. And that's when I started to look at online coaching, which was the third tier. So
Mm.
now that's another entry point to get into this brand, this ecosystem at a cheaper rate, but still very, very knowledgeable
Yeah.
information. So you're going to get what I think and how I conduct things in this app that's accessible to you, that you can use anywhere in the world. So it's a free tier system that I was trying to create, you know,
Yeah.
and then just to a wider audience. That's when we started to do more corporate wellness
Mm.
side of things. So doing fitness classes for employees of that company. We was doing it online for
Yeah.
different companies throughout COVID, and then back to back in person, and then doing fitness classes, boot camps, workshops, talks, educational pieces like that to
Yeah.
the wider audience. So for me, as a brand for the company, was inspire the nation. You
Mm.
know, ethos pushing you to greatness. So it's always been about the people rather than okay, I'm going to get in here and just make money and move on.
Yeah.
No, for me, if I could do it for free, I would, because I enjoy helping people, and that was the North Star.
Mm.
So as we move forward, it's now using social media to hit the wider audiences, going into YouTube,
Yeah.
building on that online coaching app, and then obviously the social media sides of just educating people and exposing the brand.
Right. And look, I was checking out your YouTube channel, and it is very comprehensive. And I can see you've done some live stream sessions. You've got individual, muscle groups to focus on, or different sort of techniques that you go through there. So, like you say, you're trying to make it more accessible to people through the different tiers. But it gets me intrigued. Then, so many people want to move into PT. You've just described a whole load of different things there. What's a typical week look like for you?
It's funny. I always tell people I'm not your typical PT, you know, because a typical personal trainer is they will go in at they'll get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, get in for six, half six, seven. I mean, I don't miss 6 o'clock starts. I tell you that for free. But they'll come in, they'll do their because it's an antisocial job. So we will come in and we'll do stuff pre-work,
Yeah.
maybe in the middle and after work, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So when everyone finishes work at 5 o'clock, they're either going down to the pub or seeing friends, family. I'm in the gym till about 8, 9 o'clock at night. That's just me.
Yeah.
But as you get more into the industry and you've done your years and you understand what works for you, then you can start playing around with your schedule. But a typical week for me at this very moment in time, which has developed more so in the fact that I know where I'm at, I'm established. Now I need to start taking time back for myself
Mm.
and trying to bob and weave between working in the business and on the business. So Monday to Wednesday are my busiest days where I can start from, which I've now capped 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at a very push. If time or things are happening throughout that month, I might do the odd 7 a.m. start or 9 p.m. finish. So it's back to back. I can do like up to 8 to 10 clients in one day, back to back, right? And then I'll do a fitness class for Red Bull UK. I've been training employees for the last 5 years.
Right.
And then I'll do the one-to-ones, work on the business, work with my virtual assistant who helps with email stuff, and then someone I've now employed to do events and partnerships for the brand as we start to get into the retreats market. So it's managing these people.
Yeah.
And then moving on to the other aspects of the business that really need me, which is working with another corporate company with their esports drivers for Red Bull Racing, which is
Right.
another unique space,
Mm.
right? Which
Yeah.
is kind of spearheading that, because not many PETs, or you wouldn't hear of any PETs working with professional gamers, right? But yeah, it's a typical week. Monday to Friday is that, and then the weekend, I try not to get too involved with work because I need some downtime. I need to live. You know, you're not getting any younger, so I'll do admin work, but mainly seeing family and friends and just enjoying life.
Yeah. That's good. And thanks for sharing that week. Interesting how, as you become established, you've been able to take more control of how you plan that week. And I have noticed throughout this conversation, you've used things like North Star and working in the business, not, working on the business, not in the business, and things like that. So it sounds like you're also plugged into getting good business advice and guidance as you are moving from strength to strength. Now, one of the bits that is, again, sort of intriguing for me is, as athletes, body movement control is important, that look and feel. As a PT, I guess my assumption is most PTs tend to be fit and healthy in order to, well, work the hours that you've just described, but then also as a bit of a demonstration as to why being mobile and being healthy is good. So when you think about where's next longer term for you, is there a sort of physical limit that you sort of recognize as you get older that starts to determine where you can go, and where do you then think you can take sort of your business, Lewis Powers Fitness, next?
There's limitations, but limitations in your mind, so that's where the ceiling becomes a lot lower. Now, where I'm taking this company, there's always been that bigger vision of, I want to build the legacy. I want to build this thing. How do I get it out to people? What shall I do? So the next step for me is, I've always told myself I don't want to be 40 years old on the gym floor. That's where I start to sweat, because again, I ain't getting older. But as you do get older, things are not working the same. You might feel sluggish, or you might feel this ache, and you're like, you know what? Okay, I recognize it. Now, how do I stay at my optimal best for longer? And then that's when you start opening and expanding your mind to the different things. So I was already doing this in regards to mobility work and prehab, rehab stuff because of my injury. That's the exposure to it. So now you're looking at nutrition, recovery even more so. As much as you've been coaching it to your clients, you're implementing it at another level now, because you're experienced that. Now you can turn around and say, this is working, we've done that, we've tried that, let's do that. So for me, it's understanding the different points in my own life, what gives me joy, what gives me peace and recovery, what gives me the energy, and making sure I incorporate that every day. So trying to get a good amount of sleep, trying to make sure my nutrition is always good, hydrating, and then training well. Because I know if I don't train, if I don't eat well, if I don't recover, I'm not going to be able to work on my business. I'm not going to be able to be as active, So these things have to become extremely consistent in my day-to-day and throughout the week. Yeah. So moving forward, it's like, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to take it. Now, again, I always wanted to have my own space. I had some reflection, and I'm like, I think as much as that may have been good 5 years ago, it's not going to work now in this current climate. So if I was to be true to what the real mission was, to inspire the nation, the people, the masses, it's online. I've got to push that to the oomph degree now, expose myself a little bit more online in regards to who I am and what I do on a day-to-day basis and what my philosophy is. So yes, I've built up this brand and some form of a following, but it hasn't been to the point of where I want it to be, because everything's still in my mind and I see what it can be, but it's not where it should be. So going back to what the day in the life was, I literally vlogged last week, and we're in the final stage of editing, and that will be up, and that will give a good insight in terms of what a central London established personal trainer is doing in that day and how he operates throughout his day, which I think will give a lot of exposure to the industry itself, because there's nothing like that to some degree. It's just workouts and what you should do for recovery and nutrition, but the day in the life of a person who's got to get up early day in, day out, and what they do throughout their day and what they're doing, how they interact, what they do with their clients, it's not really out there on a sort of unique and individualistic basis, So that's what I'm pushing, something that's more unique, that just gives more exposure to the brand and inspires personal trainers to get into the industry, or how to navigate, So, yeah.
That's really interesting, because I know, and I've said really interesting probably too often in this conversation, but you are certainly making me question a few assumptions I had around the personal training world, and you're shedding light on some of those bits. I know you mentioned there next for you are the retreats and wellness and sort of more events and moving down that angle. I also note that, you've been wearing that branded shirt and you've got your logo and you've got clothing and, these are types of things that are growing. Is that seen as a way of, again, having that, expanding that impact and creating that legacy?
Yeah. Again, I just fell into it with the sportswear stuff, and this was again during COVID. It was like sportswear. How? I mean, for me, it was. For me, action speaks louder than the words, right? So I've always allowed my work to speak for me, which has allowed me to win these awards and be recognized in spaces that a lot of people haven't really been recognized in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So another way to get the brand out there was to do this sportswear stuff. And I thought, okay, just stick my logo on there. Everyone's going to be wearing it and this and that. But that's a whole nother world. Something you've got to understand, that it's got to be extremely relatable, and what is the affiliation to the brand. So it added another layer of thinking to how to build and grow this company, this brand, so to speak, right? And for me, it was about community, So again, where the best analogy I can give you, again, without sounding pretentious or condescending or whatever, or brash, but it was more so like, okay, I can be a PT that is similar to the experience that you'd get in a clothing shop called Primark, or be the Louis Vuitton of PTs, right? So for me, it was, I'm going to give you the experience of the Louis Vuitton experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you come to me, it's okay. Well, I'm going to show you how I work. You're going to be educated on where your body moves, how your body moves mechanically. Okay, this is your goal, but this is what I see, and this is what we're going to now drag into you. So you want to be fit, you want to lose weight for your wedding, but then you have hip mobility issues and you've got lower back pain. We're not just going to focus on you losing weight. We're going to make you understand how to operate and contract certain muscles to work to help alleviate that pain and keep you stronger, right? So when you go through that mobility analysis or movement analysis, you'll be like, oh, I'm being educated here. He knows what he's doing. I'm going to invest in Lewis Parish Fitness.
Yeah.
Now you're invested in me. I'm extremely grateful. Here's my gift to you. Now you're going to get everything plus the kitchen sink, right? You're going to get a gift from the sportswear store, which means when you walk the street, you're going to have my branding, and people are like, who's that? So when my clients come in, they're wearing my brand. People know they're associated with me.
Yeah.
And that gets everyone thinking, oh, he's got something going on there, right?
Yeah.
And then when you do sign up, you get your goals and objective sheet. And then you get all this other information, our partnered professionals, osteopaths, sports therapists, nutritionists. You've got their number. They're good to go. These who I recommend. And because they work with me, they're going to give you a discount, because we know your health is important. So if you do well in that area, you're going to do well in that area. Now you've got discount to other brands and stuff, like your sports supplements and other bits and bobs to do with health and fitness, and then recommended. That is just a whole list of stuff to get you going. So if you ever needed to track back and research or whatever, you don't need to do that. You just need to click down this list and find it. So it's like this is the first time I'm thinking of it, actually, a health concierge within that, so you get everything you need. It's the creme de la creme, because why not? It's not just, you're just going to show up for your session and that's it. No, you're here, you're part of the community, we're here to look after you. Now you're going to feel empowered, and you're going to want to be consistent in you reaching your goals. So that's the pinnacle of it.
And what I hear there again is that the concierge, the health wellness concierge, but that ecosystem that you're creating for your community, again, just from a business perspective, really thinking about how you can extend your brand beyond that very narrow focus, perhaps that I came in at the start of this conversation around, basically setting someone whilst they're doing squats or bench presses, and you're taking that to that next level. And so look, I got to say thanks for sort of sharing the journey. I suppose there's going to be many people listening to this thinking, how do I get in to become a PT? And what are some of the practical steps, or at least thinking of how I might come in, maybe differentiate myself or do that? So for those who are listening, if someone was coming to you and said, look, Lewis, just taking your experience, what guidance would you give to someone saying, I want to get into the personal training space?
Firstly, how passionate are you when it comes to health and fitness or sports alone? Because you've got to have something that just gives you a little kick sometimes when it gets hard, you know? So do you really enjoy this aspect of the industry, so to speak? And then the next step would be you've got to throw yourself into that environment. The more you are into that environment, the more you can understand what it takes to be in that environment and what it really is like within it day to day, you know? Because when the camera stops rolling, you still got to keep going, you know? So the next step for that is then studying your craft, researching as much as possible, you know, continuous development. Get your level 2 in fitness instructing, start doing your classes, understanding how to command a presence. I would implore people to do classes because that's the best way to pick up clients, you know.
Yeah.
And then do your PT course, you know, understand how to coach individuals. And then spend the day, at least a year, I would say, in a commercial setting. If you can get a mentor that's more so within the private setting, or at least has built something that you know you want to get to, that's going to get you to where you need to be faster, because they're going to give you the shortcuts, I hope, in the right way. So for me, you've got to immerse yourself in the environment, study as much as you can. You've got to sacrifice a little bit in regards to taking the time out to hone in on what you want to learn. And then as time goes on, you understand what you really like. So if you want to get into kettlebell training, you can study kettlebells. If you want to do animal flow, calisthenics, functional movement, sports specific training, then you can sort of find your pathway and dive in even more, you know, and then the rest is history. But I implore people to just immerse themselves into their environment, and understand why you're doing it. You know, are you doing it to help people? Are you trying to get this person from A to B? What is it that sets the fire in your belly? You know, and just hone in on that. But you've got to find what works for you, and before you know it, you will find that form of niche. And without sort of over exaggerating and forcing yourself to do it, it will come natural.
Yeah, and I think that's been a key. You know, thank you for that. It's been a key component of this conversation has been your desire to follow the flow, to follow your interests, but study it, be good at it. You know, try and definitely excel, but don't force. You know, go with it. So listen, Lewis, thank you very much for sharing your story. People are going to want to get in touch. What are the best ways to follow your journey, follow your brand, and even reach out for a conversation?
Always open up for a conversation. If you need tips on what you need to do or some form of guidance, I'm happy to help. You can find us on all social media channels: Lewis Paris Fitness, LP Fitness on Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. Google me, you will find me, Lewis Paris Fitness. Or if you want to send an email, info@lewisparisfitness.com, and then we can stay in contact from there. But don't be afraid to reach out. I was in your position once and I was even stuck, you know, and that even implored me to be like, how can I help people who first get into the industry? So I get people reaching out from now asking, and I just try and direct them in the right way possible. So don't be afraid. And yeah, just reach out, Lewis Paris Fitness.
Lewis, thanks very much for joining us on the Second Wind Academy podcast today.
Thanks for having me. It's been very fun and exciting speaking to you, mate. So I appreciate it.